Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of Lights, Camera, Analysis. My name is Audrey Thorne, and as always, I will be your host. My guest this week will be a rising 6th grade Harry Potter enthusiast new to the film analysis game, Jonas.
I will be bringing the tech side today while Audrey brings the film side.
If you have not yet read or seen the series that changed the child literature game and led to the fantasy surge we have now, warning, spoilers ahead. Trigger warning for violence against women and oppressed individuals ahead.
At Harry's first Quidditch match in Book 2, the Chamber of Secrets, after Hermione said Harry was good enough for the Quidditch team, Draco calls Hermione a mudblood and says that she doesn't have the privilege to choose her opinion.
The term mudblood, which was invented by J.K. Rowling, has its origins in the real world. In Harry Potter, the term mudblood functions as a slur for muggle-born wizards. Some racists in the real world view non-white people as mud races or mud people. In Harry Potter, purebloods come from a so-called pure bloodline. Pure in that they come from a long line of wizard-born wizards. The term pureblood comes directly from real life. White supremacists in the real world claim they too have pure blood, as the so-called pure descendants of white Europeans. In both cases, white supremacists believe their worth comes from the so-called purity of their bloodline. They believe purebloods are stronger and more powerful than muggle-borns.
That's so stupid.
I totally agree. And so do the main characters. In the first film, Hagrid explains, there are so many wizards, like the Malfoy family, who think they are better than everyone else because they are what they call pure blood. Harry tells the audience the obvious response. That's horrible. Ron agrees. It's disgusting. Hagrid confirms that it's inaccurate. He says he can't think of a spell Hermione can't do. Purebloods also believe that even hanging out with muggle-born wizards makes you a dirty, weak blood traitor. However, despite these stereotypes, Hermione is the best wizard in the class in terms of magical knowledge, and also has knowledge of almost every lesson in Hogwarts. Harry, a so-called blood traitor, is the best wizard in his class in terms of magical abilities. Voldemort, who is a half-blood, he's considered the most dangerous wizard of all time.
Lily Potter, Harry's mom, had a mind for potions and sacrificed herself to the Dark Lord. That means she is a really good person and really smart.
Right. And in the real world, after the Civil War, the Klan targeted not just black people, but the equivalent of blood traitors in the wizarding world, which were local white Republicans who were against the South and were against specifically slavery, and immigrants from the North. The Klan is best known for its many acts of intimidation and violence in the South. They sanction violent acts including bombings, murders, assaults, and cross-burnings. Klan members also used its network to gain positions of power, including as sheriffs and judges. This led to the systemic oppression of black people through targeted policing, which continues today. Several confirmed Klan members were elected to Congress. Some, such as a man called Hugo Black in the 1920s, actually spoke at KKK rallies to get votes. In 1923, the KKK controlled the voting machines in nearly every Alabama county. Even President Harry S. Truman and President Lyndon B. Johnson are alleged members of the Klan.
Really? Oh no!
I know, right? It's awful. And Death Eaters in the wizarding world, like the Ku Klux Klan in the real world, use violence to gain power. Personal prejudice leads to all kinds of trouble for muggle-borns.
Throughout their time at Hogwarts, Draco Malfoy and his friends bully Hermione for being muggle-born and attack Ron and Harry for being blood traitors. He later became a Death Eater in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince to substitute Lucius Malfoy, Draco's dad, who was in Azkaban, the wizarding prison guarded by the dreaded Dementors. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, non-purebloods get petrified by a basilisk, a murderous giant serpent that kills whatever gives their eye contact on it, which is commanded by he who must not be named himself.
And in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, we find out that Bellatrix Lestrange comes from a pure family tree. In her family, they disown anyone who's a so-called blood traitor, friends and family alike. Bellatrix and her sister, Narcissa Malfoy, cut off their sister, Andromeda, from marrying a Muggle-born wizard, Ted Tonks.
Bellatrix even killed her own brother, Sirius Black, or better known as Purebloods, who everyone once believed that he was a mass murderer but was actually innocent, as Harry, Ron, Hermione, Dumbledore, the Weasley family, Alastor, Mad-Eye Moody, and then later the Ministry of Magic and the rest of Hogwarts find out.
That means that this prejudice is kind of similar to homophobia. When someone comes out to their family as a blood traitor, so to speak, their family may accept them or they might reject them. It might even result in violence. This can cause some people to do the equivalent of living in the closet or living in fear and repressing or not sharing their feelings for non-purebloods. It can also cause people to lose their families over an appreciation for non-purebloods. Just like in the real world, systemic racism against Muggleborns exists in the Wizarding world. Death Eaters use violence to take over the government, take over Hogwarts, and intimidate and kill Muggleborns. Back when Hogwarts was founded, Salazar Slytherin, a founder of Hogwarts, proposed that Muggle-born wizards shouldn't even be given spots in Hogwarts.
That caused him to be disgraced by Godric Gryffindor and ended up with Slytherin befriending the other founders and quitting his job as a professor and leaving Hogwarts altogether.
And that's because education is so important. Education is the key to climbing the socioeconomic ladder, or in other words, gaining the skills, degrees, and network necessary to become successful in the system. The Hogwarts education is so important to Harry's move from impoverished to an Aurora for the Ministry of Magic. Another wizarding school, Durmstrang Institute, only admits purebloods, like what Slytherin once proposed.
That's where Victor Crumb attended. He's a very famous Quidditch player at the age of 18 who competed in the Triwizard Tournament in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Exactly. So there are schools that practice this. And that limits the skills and social connections non-purebloods get, since they can't attend such a school. If you doubt the importance of wizarding school, look at what Hogwarts students can do when they arrive versus after they graduate. Beforehand, they have no control of their skills. Access to resources like the books Hermione loves to borrow in the library, as well as teachers like Professor Snape, prove indispensable. They're so important to students' growth as wizards. And Voldemort's terror could only be stopped by two things: love and violence. When Harry was a baby, Lily's love protected Harry and almost killed Voldemort. In the series' conclusion, the destruction of the Horcruxes and the killing of Voldemort are necessary to stop racialized mass murder. Love alone could not stop Voldemort, could not change him. In order to hold on to Hogwarts and protect the students, an all-out war must break out against the Bigots.
After Draco called Hermione a mudblood in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Ron tried to help Hermione and pay back Draco by getting really mad. He tried to curse him, but the curse backfired and hit Ron instead. Ron ended up throwing up slugs. Draco got away with it. Yuck.
And the same thing happens when he calls her a mudblood in the film. It is then we learn what a mudblood is as an audience member. Hermione, on the brink of tears, explains to Harry that it means dirty blood. Mudbloods are a really foul name for someone who's Muggle-born, someone with Muggle parents, someone like me. It's not a term one usually hears in civilized conversation. Her use of the word civilized as the antithesis or opposite of such a term denotes or clearly claims that pure blood supremacists are not civilized. Since many racists in the real world like to claim that people of color are less civilized and white people are more civilized, this flips that on its head, showing that the supremacists are actually the uncivilized ones.
Then in Book 3, Prisoner of Azkaban, Draco insults Hagrid about Buckbeak getting executed. He does this by making fun of him for being a half-breed, a crude term for a half-giant, half-human wizard, and for blubbering. Ron and Harry were about to punch him, but Hermione, tried to help Hagrid, got there first. Smack. Hermione hit him on the jawbone. She was trying to pay it forward for when Ron took care of Draco in Book 2. Ron was a bit stunned and impressed.
So, as a step back and a reminder, if an author uses a repetition of the same type of experience over and over again, they're telling the reader that it is important.
Because Ron was impressed at Hermione's courage of beating up a school bully, it's a positive part. In fact, that's how the trio of Hermione, Ron, and Harry succeeded. If someone makes a racist comment to your friend, the insulter has to take it back or face the consequences.
In the film, Draco actually never makes fun of Hagrid for being part giant. He just calls Hagrid an oaf when he gets attacked. And because he just says oaf and doesn't use a racist term, there's not a violent response by Harry, Ron, or Hermione. Instead, Hermione punches him in the face when he orders Buckbeak's death. Violence, not just racism, begets violence. We know it's positive because she said that felt good. And Ron says it was not good, brilliant. So the necessity for a violent response relates to bigoted language as well as violence. The narrative does muddle that meaning a bit, since not every act of racism gets a violent response. It is also white cast, meaning the characters and actors are all white, so it's not the strongest stance against bigotry either. But that's all for this week on Lights, Camera, Analysis.